Hey there, YouTube. Hope everybody's doing okay. Thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Comics and Stuff. As always, my name is Devin, and I am your host. And today, we're going to be talking about my top favorite DC superheroes. Now, you're probably wondering, Devin, haven't you done this before? And the answer is yes, I have. But I did my top 3 favorite DC superheroes and my top 3 favorite DC supervillains. Not much of a Marvel guy. Maybe I'll do one of those later, but I had a few people come to me and be like, Devin, why'd you do a top 3? Everybody does a top 5. You should do a top 5. And I said, well, okay. So I figured today I kind of revamped it, and I was like, okay, let me go ahead and just kind of go through the motions and figure out who my true favorite top 5 superheroes and supervillains are. So today is going to be my top 5 favorite DC superheroes. Next week will be my top 5 favorite DC supervillains, and everybody will know. This is going to be placed into the new playlist called Devin Things. It's kind of just a playlist that I'm sort of trying to make kind of just about things that I like or things that I think are interesting. And if you guys want to tune in, you're more than welcome to, and I appreciate it. So without getting too far into it, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of start talking about my top 5 favorite superheroes. Starting from number 5. My number 5 favorite superhero is Warlord, or Travis Morgan. Now, a lot of people probably don't know who Travis Morgan or Warlord is, but I can tell you about him. He's created by Mike Grell, and he was a like a U.S. Air Force pilot. He was in a jet, and essentially the way the Warlord story happens was he was flying his jet across. He was spying on the USSR. This is back in like Cold War stuff, and he was flying his jet over the USSR, and he could not get back to like his base in time. He was running out of fuel, so he figured that the fastest way to get home is to fly over the North Pole and follow the natural curvature of the Earth and something, and he'll get back in time to save himself. But he continued to follow the natural curvature of the Earth, and instead of continuing across the North Pole, he actually found a giant hole in the North Pole that kind of brought him inwards into the planet. It's kind of off of that hollow Earth theory, where the center of the Earth is like a sun, and it never is night, and there's a whole world underneath the crust of the Earth. So it kind of plays off of that, and so Travis, he crash lands in this lush jungle, and he meets this beautiful woman who becomes his wife, and he fights off dinosaurs, and he becomes the Warlord, and he's this big brute of a man, and he carries a sword, and he's scantily clad. He just has something covering his man stuff, and has like these abs and muscles and a gun and a sword and a sorcerer, like concubine. I would assume that it's a concubine, but she's not really. And it's funny, her name is Shakira. But anyways, and then his wife, and he has a daughter, and he becomes the ruler of I think it's called Shambhala. But anyways, I really like Warlord just because the character himself kind of helped introduce me to the fantasy genre, and I find the fantasy genre so fascinating just because I grew up only really paying attention to and understanding the sci-fi genre. I know, lightsabers and blasters and rockets and aliens. I don't really know much about magic and fantasy stuff, and Warlord to me really encapsulates that whole fantasy genre. There's lizard men, but there's also dinosaurs, but there's sorcery, and there's there's a pirate area in his world, and he has a magic sword and blah blah blah. So Warlord for me is just one of my favorites, just because he really helped me understand and get into that genre. So that is it. Number 4, The Flash. Now, I generally try not to bring in mainstream superheroes, but The Flash was probably the second superhero comic book I ever read. I guess when it comes to mainstream superhero comics, The Flash was the second one. Third YouTube. Third superhero comic book I ever read. And I was kind of like, I read the comics and whatever, and it was cool. I followed the Flash and a few other heroes, but what really got me so into the Flash, to be completely honest, was the TV show that came to the CW. I saw the show, and I just fell right head over heel for the hero and the character. The Flash is just he's not quite necessarily a Boy Scout, but he's not necessarily like a Dark Knight. He kind of is he does the best that he can, and he just wants to do good, but he doesn't necessarily always follow the rules. So I kind of respect that about the character, and I think super speed is a really cool superpower. I really like that idea, and the idea of the Speed Force and all the speedsters that come with it, and kind of like the whole the Flash team. I mean, Team Flash is awesome. The show was really drawn me in and pulled me into the DC TV universe as well. So, you know, like from the Flash spawned my love for like Legends of Tomorrow. Now, Rip Hunter was already one of my favorite heroes and characters, but he's an honorable mention. But anyways, that is the Flash. So, number 3. So, number 3 is actually kind of like a tie, but it's not a tie at the same time because, get this, my number 3 favorite superhero is Green Lantern. But no, not Hal Jordan. No, not Guy Gardner. No, not Jon Stewart. No, not Kyle Rayner. No, not Alan Scott. Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. Why do I like Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz? They came out different times. You know, Simon Baz came out 2011. Jessica Cruz came out 2013, 2014. But they were such new and different takes on the Green Lantern hero, or that particular, you know, filling that void while Hal Jordan was off in space. They joined up with the Justice League, and they stayed really quiet in the background for years, like 4 years or whatever, just kind of having like little cameos and little, you know, talks and a little bit of character building. But then when DC did their rebirth, they came out with Green Lanterns with Jessica and Simon paired as a team, and I love it. The writing is good, in my opinion. May not be your opinion, but in my opinion, the writing is fantastic. You know, the characters are so, not only are they diverse, but they have their own backstory that was well delivered. I really appreciate where they came from, and I can super relate to both of them on a lot of levels. And I think they're just like a cute and cool team. And also, you know, like I always tell my girlfriend, if we ever go to Comic-Con and cosplay, we have to go as Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, because, you know, like my girlfriend's a tiny little Mexican girl, and I'm, you know, Middle Eastern guy. Anyways, though, so yeah, Simon Baz, Jessica Cruz, they are just, I think that they're a really cool new fresh take on the Green Lantern, and I just really appreciate them. Coming in at number 2, this is probably obvious to everybody, Aquaman. Now, why is he not number 1? We'll get to that in a second. But Aquaman, you know, like I said, he has had a huge influence on who I am as a superhero, and I was able to relate to him as a kid. He's kind of like the butt of all superhero jokes. He's kind of the underdog, and I just really liked that character. I watched The Adventures of Aquaman as a kid, you know, like on Hanna-Barbera in the morning on Cartoon Network, like Saturday, Sunday mornings. I'd be at my grandparents' house, and I would just sit there and watch all of those old Super Friend shows, and I just really liked Aquaman. I don't know, I just did. And then, you know, when they came out with his new comic, you know, the New 52, back in 2011, when Jeff Johns took over, and the writing just got so much more, like, awesome. And the writing prior to that was never really, like, terrible. It just kept getting canceled. Anyways, though, and then, you know, the role that he and Mira played in like Brightest Day, Blackest Night, or Blackest Night and then Brightest Day, were, I mean, I guess I can't say that it was like vital, but it was really cool, and I really liked the first appearance of Calderon and all that stuff. But the character themselves, I just really liked, because he's so much more than just a guy who talks to fish, and I don't think people appreciate him enough. So that's really it. I really like Aquaman. Now, coming up on my number 1, here's one that you guys may or may not know, but I love Adam Strange. Adam Strange was a character. He debuted in 1956, Showcase Comics number 17. He was one of the most popular sci-fi characters in ever. Up until Star Wars came out, and then Star Wars kind of overshadowed, or he was kind of like under the shadow of Star Wars. And same thing with Star Trek too. Both of those kind of like loomed over him. But the character has survived nonetheless, and he actually took a hiatus for years up until, until he reappeared with Justice League United back in like 2014, I think, or 2015. Excuse me, YouTube. But Adam Strange, like, you know, you guys know how I'm really into sci-fi and all that sort of stuff. Adam Strange kind of encapsulates that geeky, you know, cool sci-fi action hero with his jetpack and his laser gun, and he's got this hot alien wife, you know, who he loves and will do anything for, and he has an adopted homeworld that he gets zapped away to for fun and adventures. And to me, when I first discovered Adam Strange, that was like, that's the coolest thing. That's, if I could have anything, that's what I would have, is like getting zapped away to a cool sci-fi world for you know, adventures with alien babes and laser gun. I mean, come on, man, that's awesome. So, you know, and Adam Strange really kind of helped foster that sci-fi love that I have. And then from that, I have other things like Star Wars, and I really like all the other sci-fi characters. Captain Comet, I just picked up his first appearance. If you watch my Emerald City Comic Con video, but that's not the point. Rip Hunter, Time Master. I love the whole time travel thing. Just sci-fi in general is awesome. But those are my top 5 favorite DC superheroes. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for letting me ramble about my favorite characters and why I like them. If you like this video, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell your friends about it. And that's really it. So I'll see you guys next week for my top 5 favorite DC supervillains. So thanks, YouTube. See you later.